workforce management and talent acquisition and stuff. What was your experience getting into that as a woman from Ecuador, being a female in this space, in this intersection of you being from Ecuador, being a female? And tell me a little bit about those experiences. What your first was just like, holy cow, this is...
I think for me, it was a way to kind of teach those people, because I've had calls where they're like, hey, I want, and then they tell me like, hush, hush, because I'm Hispanic. They're like, hey, I want, workers like you. I'm not going to say what they say specifically, but you know what I mean.
I want
like
Hispanic
workers because they're good workers. And what I've learned over, 8 years now is that, as I said again, we're all human beings, and a certain ethnicity is not going to guarantee that you're going to get an exceptional worker that's going to be at work every day. You know?
Because that was the one thing. Because they would be like, oh, can we get Hispanic workers? Because they show up for work every day.
And they're hard workers.
They'll be here every day. I'm like, what? I don't...
It does, and it doesn't matter. That's one of the things I've learned, in every culture and every color of the rainbow, I've learned that there are people that just don't want to work, or are not going to show up, or are not going to have a good attitude. Right. It doesn't really matter. And as much as I love my Hispanic culture, I know we're all hard workers, but there's exceptions like in any other race.
In any other race and culture, absolutely.
So you have to tell them that. Say, you have to give this person a chance. I'm going to send you who's qualified. But navigating through all that, one of the things that I kind of surprised me and was I had a supervisor who was Hispanic, and he was getting into X company, and he was like, hey, Antonella, I want Hispanic workers only, because I'm managing a workforce.
I want Hispanic workers only.
Yes. Oh. And then he said, because I'm managing a workforce of employees that have been there for years that are only African American, and they don't listen to me. And I'm like, well, have you thought about what kind of leader you are? Have you found things in common with them? I mean, I don't know what to tell you, but I'm going to send you who's qualified. But that taught me a little bit. And then he made this example, which you're going to think is crazy. But he said, well, it's just if you get too many of one or the other, it gets like in jail. And I'm like, what do you mean in jail? Like they just... If you get too many from one culture and too many from the other culture in one place, it gets like in jail when you have like separate gangs. And I'm like... That's a really weird example.
Like in jail, so segregating. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm like, but then you go back to the point that you have to include them. You have
Did that supervisor go to jail?
No. However, we sent whoever he was qualified, and they did a good job. But like, they have to see it. And at the end of the day, it has to do about their, I would say, mindset when it comes to the diverse team. Because, maybe I'm a Hispanic supervisor, but can I relate to something I have in common and earn their respect, because they have a different culture. Maybe they see me just as this Hispanic boss that just walked in to give all the, rules and things that they have to do. But it's the way that you handle it and the way that you approach it. And if you're already telling me that, I can already tell what they think when you're trying to...
Yeah, the bias is there.
Yeah.
You've just put it out there. And now if you're going to go lead them, your bias is, it's there.
Yeah. So that was, that was mind-blowing to me. Yeah. And I said, I am proud of being Hispanic, and I know that we're all hard workers, but, you have to qualify people by their skill set and their experience and not their race or their ethnicity. So, it's been quite a struggle, but yeah.
But you do it. You educate in such in a very eloquent way by asking the very logical and also the kind questions like, what kind of leader do you want to be?
Yes.
What are you doing to nurture this talent? What are you doing? So you do make sure that they're putting themselves there first. Correct. To see where their place is in it before moving on.